habit. And also to think about your own habitual points of view. For example, some people take, we know, a follower's point of view. And we know this because they say things like, at level 1, what do you want me to do? When do you want me to do it? How do you want me to do it? How are you going to measure me? And what's going to be my reward? These people have a follower's perspective in a fairly habitual point of way. Some people take a bureaucratic point of view. We know this because they say things like, well, that's not how we do it around here. It's not in the operating procedure. That's against our culture. Have you filled out the form yet? In fact, I was having this discussion with a group in Germany one point, and there was a participant in the room who said that she was embarrassed because her company was so bureaucratic, you had to fill out a form to get the other forms to fill out. So a line of forms indicative not just of her point of view necessarily, but of the cultural point of view of her particular organization. Some people take a leadership point of view. And interestingly, in my experience and also in my research, it's not dependent on a person's title. In other words, just because you've been appointed or assigned a leadership role doesn't mean that you will suddenly become an effective leader. You are an occupant, an incumbent in a position of authority, so we might accurately call you an authoritor. We may or may not call you a leader accurately until we discover what you do and whether or not that's going to be effective. We might end up more accurately describing you as a bureaucrat or even as a follower. So just because you have a title doesn't necessarily mean we can call you a leader. But let's think for a minute about what I will call the leadership point of view. I think it has 3 elements. The first is, do you see what needs to be done? Have you ever been in a room or in a meeting where people will, in a discussion, somehow cut to the heart of an issue? And they don't get bogged down in the weeds, but they can really zone in on what the core issue is. This is an important skill, the ability to not get bogged down, but to, in a broader perspective, see things and understand what the most important issues are. The second characteristic of the leadership point of view is that they understand all of the underlying forces, not just their favorite ones. So sometimes finance people will be promoted to senior positions of executive responsibility, and they look at everything as a finance issue. If an operational guy gets promoted to management, they may always look at things as an operational productivity point of view, and so forth for the other disciplines. But a truly effective general manager, an executive, has the ability and the understanding to embrace the challenges, the forces, the issues, the speed bumps that occur in all of the aspects of an organization, not just their favorite one. And that's an important issue. Then we could say, well, okay, there are a lot of people who see what needs to be done. We usually call them journalists. They're out there writing every day about what the problems are. There are a lot of people who understand the underlying forces. They study, and many of these people we call professors or consultants. But then the third issue is, do you have the courage to initiate action to make things better? In other words, it's one thing to understand what the problems are. It's quite another thing to have the courage to initiate action to address them. And sometimes people do that wisely, sometimes not so wisely. In my experience, many people will actually shrink from that responsibility, either because it's too heavy or because they feel like they don't have what it takes to make those decisions effectively.